And that's why I believe in you, because that is the greatest purpose. It's to love. Honest. It sounds corny, whatever you want to say. I don't care. I love people because there is freedom and power in loving people.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we have the crazy belief that creating success and happiness is a daily conscious effort, which is why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week. I'm your host, Brandon Beecham, and each and every Wednesday, you can tune in to hear me interview a different consciousness changemaker that is out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness all across Spaceship Earth. On the other 4 weekdays, you can tune in to myself and my co-host, Dalian, giving interpretations of our favorite thought-provoking quotes, sharing a bit of inspiring or mysterious news, taking questions from the audience, and digging into any other mind-expansive topics that will help keep your soul fed by tuning you into positive vibrations on a regular basis. And you guys have heard me say that if I ever run ads on the show, it will only be with a company that I fully support because I believe their intention is to make a positive difference in the world. Well, I'm pleased to announce that day has arrived and that this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's interview episode, I am happy to have a true hero with me here on the show, Andy Brine. Andy is a coach and mentor that focuses on guiding people through their own personal hero's journeys. Hey there, Andy. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to talking about the hero's journey and really connecting with you and your show. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the hero's journey is something that I've referenced, multiple times on the show, and to have someone who is a hero's journey expert is a good thing to have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off the same way I always start off. You're in an elevator. The guy next to you looks over. He says, "What is your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
My passion is helping other people find their passion and connect with who they really are at the core from an individual's perspective, breaking free from who they are and really learning how to live in their true authenticity on a deeper unconscious level.
Beautiful. That sounds like something that I would resonate with strongly. Makes sense that you're here yet again. Awesome. So let's talk hero's journey. What the heck does that mean for those who have never even heard that term? What is the hero's journey?
Well, the hero's journey is developed by a man named Joseph Campbell, first of all, and he studied mythology and religion for many, many years, but he was a big student of Carl Jung's work and also Sigmund Freud's. Many people don't realize that Sigmund Freud was a big part of the hero's journey as well. But the hero's journey birthed from the work of Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, and the study of mythology and religion, as I said. And what he noticed when he studied all of those ancient stories was that there were similarities between each and every one of them over time. And that was the birthing of the structure of the hero's journey. But what was fascinating was the fact that this story went on to inspire film directors, such as George Lucas, Star Wars. You've got Avatar, one of my favorite films nowadays.
Oh, mine too.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Matrix, right?
Yeah, The Matrix, all of the Lord of the Rings trilogies, Harry Potter. But one of
pretty much every big movie, every big story is the hero's journey, right?
Yeah, definitely. And what's interesting is actually George Lucas puts the success of Star Wars down to Joseph Campbell's work, and he regards Star Wars as a modern day myth, basically, in action, which I think is phenomenal. But what I find is more important is that each and every one of us who's looking to find our own passion, find our own purpose, connect with who we are at the core level, and really start living the life we truly want to lead, we will all naturally go through the process of the hero's journey. And for me, it's helping people uncover that for themselves so that they can live in alignment with who they are and so they can have fun along the way, you know.
Right. That's if you're not having fun, what's the point?
Definitely. It's got to be a big part of it.
So essentially with the hero's journey, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is, of course, you always have the hero. He's got a task. He's trying to accomplish something. There appears to be, imminent failure. All is lost. What's going to happen next? The hero, digs down deep, finds power within himself, finds a new avenue, a new way, is trying to one more time. There's, this roundabout way or another way to make things happen. And in the end, bouncing back from sure defeat comes out on top. Right.
Yeah,
isn't that
definitely.
typically always what's going on? What's crazy is, David Wilcock, I heard him speak about this one time. I don't know if you're familiar with his work or not, but he in one of his books, I believe it was, he was talking about this. He goes, I'm going to ruin every movie for you guys. It's always the hero's journey. It's always the hero's journey. And he went on to say that, and of course he has some pretty far out theories, and I'm open to it all, but he makes a lot of wild claims that are very, very, very interesting and entertaining at the very least. And it's like I said, I don't claim to know what is or isn't going on some of these things, but always entertained by his ideas that he puts out and his the different people that he talks to. And one of the things I heard him say was that this is actually our whole galaxy is a humanoid galaxy. And if I'm trying to make sure I remember it correctly, I believe he's saying like that is the whole center point of this. I can't remember if he said this galaxy or just this planet. So it's like almost like different galaxies have different themes, right? Different types of beings, and they are playing out the same type of story. And this is the hero's journey world. And that's something that which is why we resonate so strongly with that story if we see it, in a movie or in a book or what have you, because that's the story of us all.
Definitely, I think it's the story of our lives, But I love what you mentioned there, in terms of our galaxy and our theme. The interesting thing that you mentioned about people finding their passion, I personally believe that often the hero's journey our journey is thrust upon us. Not that we go out and search for it. Some of us do go out and search for it, but usually there's something within us that is a waking up to the world around us and seeing that it's not all sunshine and rainbows and we need to find our own bliss, But if we look at archetypes and when we begin our journey, we start in the different archetypes. The 4 archetypes they were based around Carl Jung's archetypes, but they're there's a lady called Carol Pearson who developed the hero's journey archetypes. But you start off as the innocent or the orphan, the caregiver or the warrior. And the warrior is always the one that battles and fights for what he does. The caregiver is always giving and caring and loving and stuff like that. But what's interesting about the orphan and the caregiver, the orphan and the innocent, is that the innocent is something that we all represent in our lives. And the innocence is seeing the world as beautiful and amazing and incredible.
As a child, essentially, right?
Yeah, as that child, and then waking up and realizing, it isn't as it should be, not as it should be, obviously, but as we thought it'd be. And the orphan's the person that's been neglected and abused and gone through a lot of hardship, and so that waking up is thrust upon them, whereas the innocent is a waking up of realization. But I think that's truly where the hero's journey starts. So it's not specifically us going in search, because we do go in search, obviously. But I would say prior to that going in search, it's going through those different scenarios, if that makes sense.
Right. So, what are the archetypes? Could you name those one more time so that the listeners can probably connect with one of them and see their mother or father in another one, and
So they're very much based around the 12 archetypes, but the 4 archetypes of the initiation or the call to adventure, you could say, are the innocent, the orphan, the caregiver, and the warrior. And we don't necessarily play one specific role, but we have more dominant aspects of a certain archetype. So one of mine being, if I share with you a story about, my archetype, me being an archetypal caregiver. So I'm constantly caring and giving care to others. And with giving care, what you realize is this usually is represented in females. But as we go through our journey, I could talk about this in a lot of depth, but from a masculine perspective or a man's perspective, we start our journey as a warrior, and we shift into becoming a caregiver because it's having that balance of masculine and feminine within us.
Right.
That makes sense. So the female goes from a caregiver to a warrior to get that different balance, if that makes sense. So the shifting of archetypes. At least not specifically, but along that way, because when you're constantly caring, you can easily be taken advantage of, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh,
so
yeah.
it's knowing how to have that balance within, and the warrior, for example, when they start as a warrior, they're fighting in competition. They're wanting to compete. But when they get to different layers of the archetype, it's actually more so not fighting to compete, but standing up for that cause and fighting for that cause. So as you get to the end of your hero's journey, you might represent a wise warrior where you're fighting for that cause at a deeper level, and you've got that burning inside, rather than just fighting and competing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was, checking out, of course, you have a website and a blog, which is theentrepreneur'sjourney.tv, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And I was checking out one of the blogs on there. And so you talk about the 12 stages of the hero's journey. Is that the same as the 12 archetypes?
They're not the same. The 12 stages are different. But the 12 archetypes is usually the archetypes that we go through within our journey, or that we play within our journey. That makes any sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so you have 12 different stages and you have 12 different characters that at some level you're going to play throughout, the story of your life. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. As you shift and you gain different levels of understanding within yourself.
Right. So can you explain a little bit about these different, you've touched on the archetypes. Can you touch a little bit more on the various stages?
Yeah, let's dive into the journey itself then.
Excellent.
So a lot of people see the 12 stages, which is what I'll be obviously talking to you about now, but there's an image that I can send the viewers, or you can put on the podcast. But you've got the 12 stages, and then you've got an outer circle, and the outer circle is a much bigger representation of the hero's journey, whereas the 12 stages are more of a detailed synopsis about what's going on, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So the outer circle, the first 3 stages is your call to adventure. That's where you start your journey. That's when you're initiated into becoming and creating the life you want to lead. And at the start of your journey, you're living in the conscious aspect of your mind. So you look at your conscious programming from a young age. So you've got all those conditions from society, culture, religion, our parents, all of these different conditions that we've been brought up to know and trust, which represents our condition and our programming. And then below that line, within that image, you've got the unconscious programming, the unconscious mind, which is all about the initiation process and the transformation process as well. But I would call it very much a journey to your soul. So part one is a call to adventure, where you start your journey, you start your adventure, and you're in the conscious processing of your mind. That's where you start your journey, and that's when you're living by conditions of the ego. As I said, society, culture, religion, very much a lot of conditions based on our parents and everything. All the people we looked up to from a young age as hero figures, you could say.
Right.
So that's the first part of your journey. As I said, the conscious processing. Part two is supreme ordeal and initiation. So initiating you to becoming that hero within. And I say our whole journey is a trial by initiation. So each and every stage of our journey we go through, and it initiates us to looking within and saying, "Are we good enough? Do we deserve this?" And pushing through all those physical and emotional challenges that we'll go through.
Right.
But then you got part three, the unification and transformation. And this is having that transformation within and applying and reflecting on all that you've done and applying that to your life so you can make the bigger shifts and changes. Part four, on a larger scale, is going back into the conscious processing of your mind. But if we look at the unconscious programming, which is stage 2 and 3 of your whole journey, then you've got yourself and you've got your shadow. Now, your self encompasses your unconscious values, your beliefs, motivations, who you are at that deeper core level. But you've also got your shadow, and a lot of people talk about the shadow in the spiritual world.
Yeah, a lot of talk about shadow work.
Yeah, shadow work's quite cool, isn't it? So, but it's hard.
Yes.
It's very hard.
But necessary.
Definitely. But the shadow is a direct reflection of our ego, which is all of our suppressed emotions, experiences, of we're not good enough, we don't deserve this, we don't deserve that. And that forms the shadow of who we are. And so our whole journey is one of connecting with our ego, ourself, and our shadow to connect with our soul and our character as an individual. But if we go back to stage 4 now, stage 4, if you go to, first of all, before you get to stage 4, the end of stage 3 is the reward, and having that reward of getting what you set out to create.
Right.
You're not a hero until you give something back. So you might have that beautiful house, you might have the amazing car that you want, but stage 4 is the hero's return and the road back. And it's a place of giving back and making a difference and passing your message on to the world. But I would say more so the reward is all about what success means to you at that deeper core level. Again, success isn't all about the material. Success is all about,
right,
success within. How do you really want to live your life? What do you want to feel?
Right.
But if we go through the 12 stages as a whole now in a basic overview. So stage 1 is the original world, where we start our adventure. And this is usually a place, we're in a place of pain and discomfort, despair and disparity, and we're at odds with the world. We have that waking up within because we realize we're not happy, we're not fulfilled in what we do. And so we go and search for what we truly desire, what we truly want. And that's our call to adventure, that inner calling within. But within our call to adventure, we usually have a vision of what we want to create in our life and how we want our life to look like. But as we look back at our original world and we look at those archetypes, the innocent and the orphan is someone that's been neglected and abused and had a really tough childhood, you could say, or a really tough time. And so that call to adventure, they've got this big vision of what they want to create in their life. But knowing deep down within that call to adventure, they realize that, how can they possibly break free from this neglect and this abuse? How can I possibly create that life? Because not only on a physical level and moving away from, the environment in which they're living in, but on an emotional sense, how can they possibly create that bliss? Because they don't know what that bliss looks like. What does that bliss look like for them? all they can see is what other people's life might look like, but they don't know what that experience is truly like for themselves.
Right.
So that call to venture is really interesting, but that's really when the refusal to call comes in. And I personally believe we all refuse our adventure at the beginning, and our refusal comes from unconscious fears, a lack of belief in ourselves. When we don't think we're good enough, we don't think we can break free from these conditions, because, you know, on a spiritual sense, again, the ego is something that is built up from that young age, from all those conditions, but it's there to protect and serve us as well. So the process of becoming our inner hero is disconnecting from those old patterns. But again, that's a process. So, you know, Susan Jeffers always used the quote, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." And, you know, I used to love that quote. I thought it was great, but nowadays I'm not a fan of it. And
really,
the reason why, and I personally am not a fan of it because, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. I've had big fears. I mean, really quite big fears. I didn't like public speaking when I was younger, and I used to, you know, make a whole bodge job of it at times. But I feel the fear and do it anyway. I did a lot of public speaking courses. I overcame my fears, and now I believe I'm quite a good public speaker. But now I realise that our fears aren't just a conscious fears. We've got a lot of shadow work. You know, if we see our fears and our unconscious fears as repressed emotions and experiences from our ego, that's what our shadow represents, then our refusal is a lot of those unconscious fears and programming is really resurfacing. And it's not as simple as feeling the fear and do it anyway. I feel it's then a process of healing, looking within and going about that transformation, you know. So that's why
understanding the fear, not just feeling it and doing something, but really digging in and understanding it at its core, right?
Yeah, and embracing it, because, you know, as we spoke about shadow work briefly, but it is tough stuff. It's not something that you can just go out and change straight away. Whereas conscious fears,
a lot of people think that, you know, taking the hero's journey, the spiritual hero's journey, especially, you know, it's all, as you said, rainbows and butterflies. It's okay. Whatever's blocking you, whatever is down deep in your unconscious, your ego, all this shadow is going to come to the surface to be processed and move through. Correct?
Definitely. And I don't think we can hide from it. But each and every stage of our journey is still a choice anyway. And, you know, we either choose to move forward in our journey, or we choose to, you know, go back to our original world and say, you know, this is all I'm worth, you know. And I personally believe we can all become heroes within our own lives. Not to say it's not going to be easy, because it's going to be tough for each and every one of us. And nobody's journey is an easy one. I look at, you know, some of the big businesses. You know, I'm a fan of Richard Branson. I love reading his books and watching his movies. And man, he's got a hero's journey story. A few of them. You know, it's different layers. You know, but that comes onto stage 4, which stage 4 is meeting your mentor. And I'm another fan of the quote: "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." Yeah, and you know, when we've got our unconscious fears, but we know we want to move forward, so our refusal, it is a choice, but we can either choose to embrace it on some level and find a way to move forward, or we can actually take that step back and move back. But if we do choose to embrace it, I do believe that our mentor will appear, or we'll find those people that can support us. And Richard Branson was a mentor for mine. For me. Right. But mentors come in different forms as well. You look at The Matrix, and you've got Morpheus from The Matrix, who was obviously Neo's mentor throughout his whole journey, which is you know, fantastic. But I personally believe he played a physical role, because he helped him fight. He helped him
train,
flying some way off form. Yeah, train, communicate in that new world,
Yep.
But one of the other movies I absolutely love, and it's an old film, and it's actually a Disney one, Pinocchio. Now, Pinocchio is a true hero's journey, and when I talk about the hero's journey as being a journey to your soul, there's no doubt in my mind that it's a journey to your soul. And if you look at Pinocchio was a wooden puppet, and all he wanted to do was become a real boy. He wanted to find his soul, who he was.
Yep.
But what was interesting was one night he made a wish. He made a wish, and he looked up out of the window and he said, I want to become a real boy. And so the blue fairy comes in and turns to Pinocchio and says, Pinocchio, you can become a real boy if you follow your conscience, and always let your conscience be your guide. And that's when Jiminy Cricket became Pinocchio's mentor, and he was very much his conscience to help him, stay in alignment with who he was and not get guided off or led astray by our shapeshifters. And we spoke about that before the call, didn't we? Shapeshifters of our world.
We did.
But no,
definitely seen a few
incredible.
Of those.
Yeah. But no, I think they're important for our journey as well. But you've got crossing the threshold.
They definitely play a role, and I think of and I've referenced it many times just because I think it's so important to reference. I did an interview with Eben Alexander, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but he had Harvard neurosurgeon, had a near-death experience, and then came back and wrote a book about it. And part of what he learned in his weak coma on the other side, when his brain was pretty much destroyed, they were saying pull the plug, he's not coming back, and he did, was these shapeshifters are, essentially, many times these villains or shapeshifters are those that you're closest to on the other side, and they've come to play a role. And of course, we can get into that more in a minute. It's something that I'm maybe getting ahead of myself as, soul contracts. So, anyway, proceed.
No, I love it, and it's so true. The shapeshifters, and we look at our archetypes and the lessons within our archetypes, and mine has been the dominant caregiver. I've been the dominant caregiver, and I've realized I've gone through experiences when I go blindly into a situation and I give so much love and care, even on a business sense, I want to help and make a difference as much as I can, and often being taken advantage of because of it. But that was back in my past, but not anymore so much. But it's knowing that I'm worthy, and having that balance within, But I believe they are the big tough lessons, and I think the shapeshifters do come through those experiences,
Absolutely. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So, needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.
But if we look through to stage 5, then stage five is quite a small stage, you could say, but yeah, it's one of the most significant stages, and that's the crossing of the threshold, and that's now stepping away from the world in which you know and trust and you love to some degree because the place you're comfortable in, which is great. But now you're stepping into the world of the unknown, and the unknown world of trials and tribulations, of transformation, and really stepping up to be the person you really want to be. So crossing the threshold is massively significant, because it's all shifting of those beliefs as well. You still don't fully believe in yourself at that point, but you're willing to give it a go. You're willing to go into the world of the unknown. And I love the saying, I don't know if it's a saying or a phrase, but once you've entered a new world or opened up to a new way of living and being, you can't ever go back to who you ever were before.
Yeah, and once you open the box, you can't put everything back in.
Yeah, and it's so true, isn't it? You think,
oh, it is.
I can't possibly go back there.
Yeah.
No matter how hard I try.
I know too much.
Yeah, it's like Joseph Campbell always says, living in authentic lives. Those of us living in our conditions of the ego, or it may sound harsh, but it's not meant in a harsh way. But maybe those people doing the 9 to 5 constantly and not realizing the true potential they have within, are living in authentic lives because they're not trusting who they are as the individual and find their own path, if that makes sense.
Right.
But not on a harsh level, but more on a level to say, whoever you are, listen to this. If you are in a 9 to 5 and you want to find your own path, you want to live your own truth, it starts with finding your own journey and looking within and seeing who you are.
And knowing that it's there for you, right? I mean, if you want to go down that road, as soon as you set that intention, it's like the universe is meeting you halfway. It's you want to go this route? Okay, let's do that. Let's start. I love the idea and the concept that the universe completely rearranges itself the moment you set an intention or start stepping down a certain path. And even if you can only see the first step. A lot of times people don't do it because they can't see it. They want that assurance, that security, and there's really no such thing. That's an illusion. So they can only see step one, and so they never go anywhere, and they stay in this quote unquote safety zone, which, as Jim Carrey talked about this as well. He's like, my father taught me one very important thing. He could have been a great comic, but he wanted to take the safe path and be an accountant. And at 12 years old, he lost his job and we struggled. And I learned one very important thing. You can fail at doing what you don't want. So might as well do what you do want. And I think that's a very, very powerful lesson. To be willing to step off the ledge, so to speak.
Absolutely love Jim Carrey's work nowadays.
Oh, he's amazing.
Incredible.
I intend to get him on this show. It's going to happen. Universe, start moving, start rearranging. I've set the intention.
Put it out there. 6 degrees of separation, right?
Jim, if you hear this, you're coming on the show. Your big break is just ahead of you if you'll just open your eyes.
Oh, so cool. But the crossing of the threshold is huge. It's only a small step, but one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Right.
So, but no. Then you've got the road of trials, and the road of trials is the biggest stages of your journey, and one of the largest stages is broken down into your tests, your allies, and your enemies. And your test is obviously physical tests and challenges that you go through each and every day. And you think about your goals and objectives that you set at the beginning of your journey, your call to adventure, or when you set out on your quest. And then you think about aligning yourself with those, what you truly want. So it's all about learning who you are at the core level, who you are at the unconscious self, your unconscious values, beliefs, motivations. And I love Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. What drives you each and every day? Love, growth, contribution, certainty, uncertainty, and I've forgotten the other one. But you think
that's exactly what I was referencing when I talked about certainty and uncertainty. I was thinking of Tony Robbins as I was saying that, because that's a big piece of what he talks about, and actually figuring out where you operate from, so that you can understand yourself and make the changes necessary to get to where you want to go.
Definitely, and I think that's where the tests come into play, because a lot of people look at who we are at the conscious level, and they don't look at our unconscious and who we are at deeper core. And pulling out that shadow stuff will make that huge difference as well, because going through those tests will bring up the unconscious fears, the unconscious doubts that will need to be worked on as you go through your journey. You've also got allies, and allies are what I regard as your archetypal team. So you have got, Star Wars, you've got the Princess Leia, you've got the, obviously Luke himself, you've got Chewbacca, you've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, you've got all those different people that play their roles in your story. But who are the archetypes in your life that are helping you to grow and develop? And I would say you all need your own archetypal team in order to make those shifts and changes. One of the biggest archetypes that I talk about from a masculine perspective, you could say, but I still believe each and every feminine needs to connect with that as well. And that is actually the divine feminine. And from a masculine perspective, you can obviously see what the divine feminine is all about, connecting with the inner feminine within. But the divine feminine is all about that self-reflection, nurture, self-care and things like that are important for you on your journey. But having those people in your life that can help you to connect with that part of yourself. Because even on the feminine aspect, the feminine are exactly the same. They still need those other people that can help them access those parts, because often those parts are still neglected when you're going about your quest. We talked about the enemies on your journey, which are your archetypal shapeshifters, and also your shadow itself, like the Anakin Skywalker. But he was obviously a good guy to begin with.
Right.
But,
right. Yeah. That's definitely a shapeshifter.
He's definitely a shapeshifter as well, isn't he? So,
yeah,
love it. But there's so much you can think about there in terms of your road of trials.
Yeah.
We can speak about a lot there if you wanted to, but if you look at then the approach.
You want to go through? I mean, do you want to go through the rest of the stages, or is that you feel like?
I don't think there's a need to go through all the rest of the stages. I could go through them briefly. Like the approach is the self-reflection stage. The ordeal is then bringing all of what you've learned together in order to create the bigger shifts. So all of your lessons, your tests, culminate them all together to create the bigger transformation within, on an outward perspective as well. And you've got the reward and what success means to you. And then you're on some, in a way, you've gained the success you wanted in your life, in some way or form.
Right.
But if I just talk about these final three stages, the stage 10, 11, and 12 is all about your road back and your journey back home and becoming that hero within, because a hero is not a hero until they give something back, as I said.
Right.
So you take your road back, and I often say, well, Simon Sinek often uses the phrase, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I go as far as saying people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it based on your journey and story. But that's connecting with what is important to you and why you're giving back in this world. Why are you here to make a difference? And that's really defining who you are as, again, that individual, but from a different perspective in the ways how you're going to give back to your communities, how you're going to give back to others.
Yeah.
But stage 11 I would say is the biggest ever stage, and that's the only one that I really wanted to mention before we move on to other stuff. Mm-hmm. And stage 11 is the atonement. And as I said at the beginning of the interview, it's, the hero's journey was based around religious scriptures and books, Greek times and Roman times. And obviously Jesus died and came back to life. He had a death and resurrection, and we have a death and resurrection within each and every one of us. And that's the rebirthing of ourself and who we are, So this is finally breaking free from all those conditions of the ego. understanding ourselves at that deeper core and having that inner enlightenment and inner peace and fulfillment, and nurturing our shadow self, becoming one with our shadow.
Yeah.
And the atonement is the rebirthing of self, as I said. It's also the journey of wholeness, becoming whole again, and living life on your terms.
Right.
But the atonement is really that stripping bare of who you are and standing in your truth now. This is who I am, So...
Beautiful. Thank you for going into such depth and detail. And I think really what it says to me, and I hope the listeners take away is, first off, you have these different archetypes. So, they're soul contracts. These are people that are coming into your story to play a certain role. And instead of judging everything that's happening to you as, speaking of Tony Robbins, he's fond of saying, life's not happening to you, it's happening for you, right? And so these archetypes that maybe are the shapeshifter or whatever's happening, that especially when it's negative, if you can understand that it's part of, you've set up your own personal hero's journey. It's sort of pre-staged, and you're meant to go through these trials and tribulations and come out richer for it. And, like Luke Skywalker does or Neo does. And so when you can start understanding the structure of the hero's journey, and the reason we all resonate so strongly with the hero's journey is because it's the journey of mankind. It's the story of mankind, and we're playing it out on our own personal levels. It's, the universe is a giant fractal, right? It's everything that you see, the atoms that make up my person are just like the solar system. You've got the protons and electrons spinning around, and same kind of structure. It's all just microcosm, macrocosm. So the same thing's happening. This hero's journey is playing out for all of us as mankind and individually simultaneously. And when you can understand that, and now take a lens, look through that lens at your own life and your own epic saga, it's going to make sense in a way where instead of resenting the hardships or the pain that has been dealt to you, it's meant to lead you into the next stage, right?
Definitely. And I would say it's not taking the path of least resistance. It's finding out what your own truth is and forging your own path, and like what you said about your trial by initiation, and your trials aren't setbacks. Your trials aren't that you're not good at this, you're not worthy, or you can't create that success. They're really your initiation into your own growth. Am I going to stand up for what is right for me now?
Right.
Or am I going to go back to living in those conditions or how I used to live?
Yeah.
But it's a tough
I like
path.
that.
It's not easy.
Absolutely. And it's varying degrees for different people. And I'm fond of the concept, the greater one toils for freedom, the greater the sense of freedom that's attained. And, so if you're looking at your story and you've had great struggle, congratulations, bravo. You're a brave soul that signed up for quite the hero's journey. So instead of thinking poor me, think, wow, lucky me. I get to the greater one toils for freedom, the greater the sense that's attained. The pendulum swung really far one way for you. Excellent. Because it's going to, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's going to swing back when you take the right perspective and understand what's going on, and what understanding this story and your own personal version of it is just paramount to, becoming the greatest and grandest version of self, I would say.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. Definitely. And if we look at what patterns are reoccurring in your life, I think that's an interesting one to ponder on, because when you look at that, they are the lessons within themselves. They are, those conditions you're trying to break free from and understand for yourself. To live life on your terms and say, this is what is being asked of me. This is what I need to transform within, and even the archetypes can help you identify those conditions and what you can do to shift and change that within yourself.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that comes to mind, Andy, is, of course, for one, you help teach people about the hero's journey. You actually help mentor people and coach people as their life pertains to their personal hero journey, which I think is a really cool approach to mentoring or coaching. And I'm curious, what are some of do you have any stories for us of people that you've come across, any best hero's journey stories you've come across in the real world, whether it be personally that you've dealt with or maybe that you've just heard about, aside from Luke Skywalker?
You know what? I think there are so many different stories. I run my own show called The Entrepreneur's Journey, and I was interviewing a lot of different entrepreneurs, but one of the stories that really touched me a lot, actually, is a friend of mine, Deborah Oakland. She's an incredible lady, and she's wrote a book called Change Your Movie, Change Your Life. And this is all about living in courage and in your own courage. And sadly, many years ago, she had lost 4 or 5 family members, I think, within the space of 3 years.
Wow.
Really close family members. And people were looking up to her or looking to her for advice and guidance. And, she was stood there thinking at that time and at that moment, I'm broken myself. Right. I am not in the place to give this, but she was the person that had to stand in courage, live in that courage and be that support and in guidance for those other people as well. But what she learned through those experiences were incredible for finding her own inner peace, and transforming the lives of others around her. But she has an absolute phenomenal story from her own heartache to her own inner peace and self-love, and inner and outward transformation. And hopefully next year I'll be coming over to the States to do a workshop with her all about the journey to living in courage, or your journey to living in courage. And that's all going to be about your hero's journey and the lessons you learn in order to live the life you truly want to lead and break free from those low level emotions where you feel low self-worth, not good enough, lack of self-belief, and then transforming them to living in that courage. But what are your road of trials? What lessons can you learn within those places or areas? But she has a phenomenal story, and I can share so much with that as well, but I can only share so much here. So
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, someone who's had great tragedy, oftentimes you'll see, some sort of a great tragedy, but then that sort of parlays into their life's work, right? This awful thing happened to a family member, and now I started a foundation to end this practice. You know what I mean? You see these kind of stories all the time. It's played out time and time again. So was it a tragedy, or is it part of the script that she wrote for her own life? And yes, of course it's hard for those left behind, very painful, but I think it helps to ease that pain in a situation like that when you can understand, okay, this is obviously, you talked about cycles, repeating patterns. Okay, here's this pattern of all this loss in her life, right? Well, what is it? Why is this happening for me and not to me? And of course, now here we are talking about her story, and she's written a book that I'm sure is greatly inspired by some of that experience and, all those things. So it's once again, it's just about understanding and looking through the proper lens. And of course, we always love, speaking of stories, and this is all about stories and journeys, this particular episode, which I love. We love to get synchronicity stories, which I'm going to ask you for here in a second. But one of the things that I got to thinking as we're talking is, as you become aware, of the hero's journey and the stages that you're in, and you become conscious of what's happening to you, I think that's a time when you really open yourself up for synchronicity. And, these sorts of things I notice are normally happening when I'm on the right path and aware of what's happening. And they're sort of cues, winks from the universe. So would you say that synchronicity is sort of an indicator of some level of consciousness and awareness to your own journey?
Yeah, I would say that synchronicities do show where we are on our journey in some ways. It's knowing that we're awake and we're consciously aware of what's going on around us, and on a spiritual sense as well as a physical sense, Right. But no, in a synchronistic experience for me was I've always been a techie for years. I love the techie world. It's fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
But I've also been in the coaching industry for longer, I'd say now. A long time. My techie days was up to university, and then some things happened with me, and I opened up to the world of hypnotherapy and linguistic programming, and it shifted my life, drastically, changed very quickly. But I'd done coaching
definitely
and therapy for a long time.
Two different worlds there, right?
Yeah, but my synchronistic experience was that I was doing a lot of coaching and therapy, but I was finding it difficult at that time. So I was still doing tech stuff on the side, and I still do nowadays because I love helping people with that. And I'm always one that's looked to for that guidance as well at times. But it was only the last few years that I really took on the hero's journey as a full business, you could say, because I was doing the coaching and therapy, and I did a joint project with a few friends over in the States, and it was fantastic. But it opened me up and made me realize that this is my passion. I've got so much knowledge around this area. I studied it for about 10-15 years. Well, about 10 years.
Wow.
In a lot of depth, and there's still so much you can learn about the hero's journey, and it links in psychology, it links into understanding yourself. There's so much to it, and Joseph Campbell's written about 10-15 books at least, and it opens up a new world of being anyway. And I look at all my coaching and therapy nowadays, and I realize that the coaching and therapy is a part of your hero's journey. And again, I love helping people find their purpose and passion, but on that deeper core level. And I believe each and every coach and therapist has gone on their journey to give something back and make a difference. But when I look at the hero's journey, I see it as, helping those coaches and therapists make that difference, but finding out what their unique talents and gifts are within their own journey. Because if you look back at their original world, you look at their road of trials, their transformations, and then we get to their road back and how they give back and make a difference in the world, then that original world, all of those road of trials, they really bring everything to light. And that's when so much clarity and perspective comes out for them, so that they can make a big difference in their lives. And in terms of the synchronistic moment was that I knew that this was my calling. This is what I was supposed to be doing within my life.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal work. But I work with a good friend of mine, Nicole Levac, as well, and she's writing a book all about nature's wisdom, and she's been talking about that for years. And I said, you know what, I think the hero's journey could help you. Let's have a chat and let's go through your journey and story and see what will come up for you. Yeah, she's a good friend, so I went through it with her. She was like, there's so many things there's lots of different courses that say they can bring you clarity, perspective, they can help you connect with your purpose. But she said one thing about the hero's journey is that this has brought so much more clarity, perspective, and purpose that I'd never had before. It was incredible. And I wouldn't, I would say I'm good at what I do, but I wouldn't say it was specifically, me doing that. I was guiding her through that, but it was her connection with her own journey that really brought everything to life, and that transformed and brought that clarity to what she was doing on that grander scale,
Yeah. Very cool. Well, let me ask you this, Andy. What is the best way to for people to connect. Now, you actually have, I mentioned the website, theentrepreneurjourney.tv. You actually have an app on the site that in general, in app stores, I'm assuming that people can get to sort of track their own journey, correct?
Yeah, I have a Hero's Journey app. It's called Take Your Hero's Journey, and it's on Android. You can download it for Android today, and you will be able to download it for the iPhone the first week in September 2016.
Oh, okay, great.
So I'm looking forward to releasing that. And that's all about you taking your own journey, and there's different exercises you can go through to help you connect with your soul, go about your inner and outward transformation, and really awaken your inner hero. So I'm really excited to get that out, and I'll hopefully be running my live show. What a great idea. Cool, thanks. Yes.
I look forward to checking it out. When you get when the iPhone one hits, I'll be checking it out. I am an iPhone user.
Cool. I'll send it over to you when it's done. So.
Excellent. So connecting with you, people can connect through your website. Is that correct? Is that the best way?
Yeah, they can connect through my website, which is www.theentrepreneurjourney.tv. And obviously connect through my app as well. So.
Excellent. Well, Andy, this has been such a wonderful journey to connect with you like this and learn more about the hero's journey. I know I definitely learned some things, and it's I'm sure the listeners as well, and helps to give perspective on my own life and my own journey. And I would like to leave you with one final question. Same question I leave everyone off with. I open with the same question and I end with the same question. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Andy Brine?
Wow, that's a big one, isn't it? Okay, the meaning of life is to find your own meaning.
You've got a whole 60 seconds, Andy.
The meaning of life is to find your own meaning, connect with your own passion, and follow your own bliss. Connect with your soul, connect with your individuality, and really make a difference for your own self. That is your own inner meaning.
Love it. Very well said. And you still had 45 seconds to go that you didn't even need.
Oh, really? I thought I was running out there.
Andy, thank you, my friend. This has been so excellent to connect and continue on with your journey. I hope you journey well. Until next time, journey well, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks again.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes. Since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting, your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.